Hi, I'm Megan. Welcome to today's live chapter reading of A Powerful Season by Kathryn Dodson, presented by Itsy Bitsy Book Bits. Join me. Chapter 1. Lacey had waited 10 years for this letter. It showed up in a sealed envelope instead of an email attachment, adding to its importance. She pulled the stainless steel letter opener from her desk drawer. It had sat there, barely used for the last 15 years, as pixels replaced paper, and she'd risen high enough in the organization to acquire an administrative assistant. She inhaled a wish. 6 months, 6 months wouldn't be enough. Then she exhaled the rancor of a potential lawsuit should the number be too low. The envelope seam parted with a satisfying scritch. She pulled out its contents and unfolded the first page. 12 months. Exactly 1 month to the day since she'd turned 60, and they'd offered her the deal of a lifetime. She'd persevered year after year, towing the line the way they told her to do since business school. Decades of long hours at work, guilt over time spent away from family, and so little time left over for herself. She'd followed the path, climbed the ladder, done everything the right way according to some plan she didn't create. And now she could finally begin the rest of her life. She looked around, surprised she couldn't see the monumental shift in the universe that should have occurred. The office walls remained grayish instead of the thumping fuchsia her heart desired. The wooden desk stayed solid instead of transforming into molten metal that refashioned itself as a gleaming chariot to whisk her away. She'd forgotten to breathe. The dried wood pulp and ink now trembled in her unsteady hands. She set the paper down, thoroughly read each page, then pulled an ancient Mont Blanc pen from her desk drawer. The rarely used graduation gift from her parents remained pristine 38 years after its purchase. Other than a phase in the 90s, she considered it too ostentatious for the office. She tested it on a piece of paper. Surprisingly, the pen still wrote as smoothly as freedom on a late summer day. Lacey signed the employment buyout contract, granting her liberty and a generous 12 months of salary, and hand-delivered it straight to Human Resources. She thought she'd escaped after leaving it on the receptionist's desk, but then a familiar voice rang across the office. Lacey, come sit for a minute. Julie waved her into the roomy vice president's office. So, I take it you took the offer? Hell yes. I can't believe the effective date is in 30 days. I've got far more vacation than that built up. And they'd pay for every vacation day she didn't use. I'm sure Justin will want to talk to you about that. Losing you will be a big transition. He's already mentioned bringing you back as a consultant. He's the one who said the department needed to head in a new direction. Lacey attempted to straighten her face, certain it held the sneer that comment provoked. You challenged him at every turn. He knows nothing about our industry and wanted to dismantle the one department in this company that helps all the others attain their goals. His changes would have inevitably damaged the business, and the higher-ups would blame me, not the new Wonder Boy. I was trying to save my ass and the company's bottom line. Well, your ass is now duly saved. A genuine smile lit Julie's face. And you got a hell of a deal out of it. 1 year severance. Plus, you can set your rate as a consultant. I know Justin wants your expertise, not in his chain of command. Justin can suck my dick. Lacey slapped her hand across her mouth, shocked that the comment had slipped out. She had heard the line in a movie and loved the moxie of the teenage character. It sounded ridiculous coming out of her 60-year-old mouth, but the excitement of breaking a rule zinged through her nonetheless. Julie looked at her in shock and then started giggling. Well, he can't force you to consult, she said once her laughter stopped. Exhilaration flooded Lacey. After all these years, she drove the bus. She'd never have to hold back her tongue or work a single day she didn't want to. This very minute, she could walk out, claim unused vacation days, and never return. She sure as hell wouldn't come back as a consultant. She certainly wouldn't stay for 30 days so the child prodigy could set her up to take the fall for his disastrous decisions. He's not so bad, Julie said. Just inexperienced. Lacey agreed with Julie's assessment, but it hadn't been her choice to put a 29-year-old in charge of someone in her 60s. No, that had been Bob's decision. Bob, one of the last boomers still hanging around the office, had stumbled into the title of Chief Information Officer, despite hardly being able to use his iPhone, not to mention the company's array of hardware and software. Somehow, despite his incompetence, he had been shoved further and further up the corporate ladder, usually when he became so annoying entire divisions threatened to quit. But he'd gone to college with the CEO, which apparently meant lifetime job. Perhaps you're right, and Justin is merely inexperienced. Bob, however, is incompetent. Either way, I plan on using 2 weeks of vacation over the next month. The satisfaction of the cat eating the canary ran through her, the yellow feathers tasting of lemon candy. You should speak to Justin about that. I'm not sure that works with his plans. A tangerine and blackbird flitted in the tree outside Julie's window, jumping from branch to branch and shaking the dark green leaves. A world bright with color waited for her. Maybe she'd take the afternoon off and experience warm sunshine on her face instead of returning to her grayish cage. She turned to Julie, a friend, but one who counseled others in the company. I am 60 years old, and I have earned my vacation. You might want to remind the 29-year-old about age discrimination. What's gotten into you? You've never been quite so ornery before. Julie's surprise at her reaction had turned to concern. Don't you ever want to get out of here? You're almost my age. How long are you going to stay? As long as they keep paying me. I've got kids in college and I'm the major breadwinner. Julie's face turned grim. As Lacey stared back at her friend, lifelong responsibilities unshackled themselves from her shoulders. Her kids had done well. Maddie had earned a spot on the partner track at an environmental law firm in San Francisco. Zach, well, he decided to follow the early career of his favorite president and become a community organizer, although he'd recently begun working in Oakland's Housing and Community Development Department. His passion for his work exceeded anything she ever felt, although she worried about his low salary. The world had changed 180 degrees since her graduation. She'd loved literature so much she majored in it, but she'd also minored in business. At her first full-time job, they'd paid for higher education, so she'd earned an MBA at night school. She'd been told that if she worked hard and saved her money, she'd have a good life and be able to afford retirement. So she had, and she would. The bird that had caught her attention flew away. Lacey jerked to a stand. I've got to go. Please let my superiors know I've accepted their agreement. Julie's eyebrows raised. You can't just leave. You have to tell your staff. After all, you don't want them finding out from Justin, do you? Shit. She'd been so absorbed in her own feelings, she'd forgotten about everyone else. She glanced down at her phone. 10 a.m. Listen, this is a big change and I need a little time to process it. Can you hold off on sharing that news until this afternoon? I'll schedule a staff meeting for 1 o'clock and tell everyone then. She needed time to think. Her dream had come true, but the next steps eluded her. What would she do this afternoon? Tomorrow? 3 months from now? As soon as Julie agreed, Lacey stopped by her office and grabbed her purse. On the way out the door, she asked her assistant to schedule the staff meeting. After that, who knew? Lacey drove toward the ocean. She'd lived in Southern California half her life, and whenever she had a problem, life event, or some extra time on her hands, the water called to her. Today, she didn't take the shortest path. For once, time had less meaning in her overscheduled days. Instead of racing her to some unknown destination, time sprawled before her, vast and unused, waiting. Its siren song beckoned, yet warned her of dangers ahead. Could she survive a life not stuffed with meetings, tasks, and chores? It was damn sure time to find out. She passed a retirement community of that special California brand, low-slung condos built in the 50s or 60s, about the time of her birth, stretched along a hilltop with an ocean view. It reminded her of the development where she'd once visited her friend Deb's mother. In fact, it might be that very complex. The condos weren't exactly shabby, but they looked dated. Of course, she probably couldn't buy one for less than $1 million, at least not one with an ocean view. She drove into Carlsbad Quaint Center, currently stuffed with tourists, on a warm August day. At her favorite hidden parking lot, she waited for an empty space and then walked down to the seawall and followed a concrete pedestrian path along the beach. She leaned on the wall, faced toward the ocean. A light breeze caressed her. Perhaps it had arrived from Hawaii, Japan, or some other faraway place she longed to visit. And now she could. The possibilities seemed as vast as the ocean. For all her dreams about retirement, she'd never planned what she'd actually do when the day arrived. She'd assumed things would fall into place, exotic destinations to visit and friends to hang out with would reveal themselves. Now she faced a gulf between career woman and happily retired with no straight path from here to there. A trace of worry ran up her spine, her career as a project planner coming home to roost. She'd planned everything but the last third of her life. But she didn't have to worry about that yet. Today, she wanted to sprint through the sand like a teenager, strip down to bra and undies, and throw herself in the water. She might if she didn't have a meeting to attend. She'd remain presentable for 2 more weeks, then go feral. She wouldn't shower for days, would eat popcorn in her bathrobe and plan some grand adventure. That was the social contract, right? She'd held up her end of the bargain, worked hard, gotten ahead, or at least hadn't fallen behind. Now it was her turn to kick back and let others toil. Like her kids, she'd go see them first, maybe over a long weekend. They worked so hard trying to save the world from climate change and social ills. She'd once hoped by the time they had jobs, work life would have changed, no longer requiring the extraordinary hours she'd put in while proving herself. A different fire burned in them. They didn't work to climb a ladder, but because the world verged on falling apart. Keeping it together had descended into their shoulders. Lacey wasn't quite sure how this had happened. Always staunchly pro-environment, pro-feminism, pro-abortion, and anti-discrimination, the world devolved despite her beliefs. How could debates continue on these issues after so long? And how could nothing have helped? She'd recycled, worn a pink pussy hat, voted, given money to the right candidates her whole life. She'd done her best. And yet these battles had fallen to her children. She shook her head, letting the breeze ruffle her pixie cut. Right now, she needed to focus on this transition. She could let her hair grow long and soft if she didn't have to take on the big boys in the boardroom. She could switch stilettos for something more comfortable. Everything would change with this hard-won golden retirement. Lacey took one more deep breath of salty air, imagining the scent of jasmine instead of rotting seaweed and suntan oil. Then she returned to the office with the glee of a countdown thumping alongside her heart.